Saw me, liked me, wanted me, chased me, got me, and then you fumbled me?
What the hell did you just say?
Saw me, liked me, wanted me, chased me, got me, and then you fumbled me?
Imagine giving the vote to a creature so insecure and so infantile that when they get pumped and dumped by Tyrone because their ego told them that they were in Tyrone's league and maybe he might want a relationship with her, but the truth was she was not in Tyrone's league and he was always going to pump and dump her, that she has to make up an utterly transparent cope story about him fumbling her. And not only that, she has to make a TikTok video in order to get the validation of the sisterhood to validate her cope story so that she can live in a fantasy world where she didn't just get pumped and dumped by Tyrone. Tyrone fumbled the prize that she is.
You can't be serious. You cannot be serious.
Imagine giving the vote to a creature that infantile and that insecure. Unbelievable. What the fuck were we thinking?
At this point, we're going to wait for security. I understand. I already told you this. No, understand. Your family are safe. No one is going to go. No one is going to go up to we are not going upstairs with our law enforcement. We're at that point now. After the display of behavior here, that is not acceptable.
Talking of infantile. Now, men who are half red-pilled, they've got a decent understanding of female nature, tend to believe that they stop growing as teenagers. The general theory is that once they develop breasts and, a woman's hips and they realize the power they have because men start hitting on them, that's when they stop growing because they realize they can get what they want by manipulating men and, offering the promise of sex. And there is some truth in that. But fully red-pilled men, MGTOW guys like myself who deeply understand female nature, recognize that thanks to 60 years of female supremacy, aka feminism, utterly corrupting the female mind, their development isn't arrested in their teens, it's arrested at about 4 and 5. As this young lady, as this infant has just demonstrated, certainly emotionally, the modern woman is a 4-year-old girl, a spoilt 4-year-old brat. Psychologically, yes, probably more like a teenager, but emotionally, they don't evolve past the point that they were spoiled. And in a gynocentric society, where most fathers are weak and ballless and spoil their daughters, and a huge number of children are being raised by single mothers who teach their daughters that they are the superior gender and that they are princesses and perfect and they don't need a man and blah, 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 blah. Almost all women are spoilt. They're spoilt at around 4 and 5. And we have to understand what it means to be spoilt. What happens to milk that's spoilt? What happens to fruit and veg that's spoilt? It's rotten. Or in the case of milk, it's rancid. And in the case of fruit and veg, it's rotten. And that is what happens to girls that are spoilt. They become rancid, rotten children in adults' bodies, infants in adults' bodies, I like to say. And that is a perfect example. But that's an extreme example where you can see it. But just watch TikTok or Instagram or any podcast with modern women, and you see exactly the same behavior psychologically and emotionally, even if it's not demonstrated physically like she's just done. It's the same behavior. It's the behavior of a spoilt 4-year-old brat. That is basically what a modern woman is. A brat who thinks the world revolves around her, who thinks that she's never wrong, everything is somebody else's fault, she's entitled to everything she wants, the world is supposed to make her happy. Yeah, that's what a spoilt 4-year-old brat is like. Isn't that what modern women are like? Have you met any? Moving on.
You know how you go get your hair done, but before you get your hair done, you have to put down a deposit. So I done came up with an idea. We should start charging these men deposit to date us. And if you don't show up, you do not get that deposit back. Like, we should start charging them a fee to date us. Like a 30-day trial. You pay like $1,000 to date us. So, and if they don't do right by us within them 30 days, we keep the money. I'm just saying, like.
And this is exactly what I'm talking about. Now, she's not rolling around on the floor throwing a tantrum like a 4-year-old spoilt brat. But the idea that a man should pay $1,000 deposit to go on a date with a woman is just as infantile, just as entitled, just as spoilt brat princess as the woman who was rolling around on the floor. What's the difference? The only difference is that she's sitting calmly, smiling, feeling smug and proud of herself. But the mental and emotional level that she's operating at is exactly the same as the one throwing the tantrum. A 4-year-old. That is a 4-year-old child in an adult's body. It's really obvious to me that because most people are children in adults' bodies, men included, this might sound controversial, but when you're an actual grown-up, when you don't live through a series of coping mechanisms, when you actually face your fears and live in the present moment because you've mastered yourself, you've mastered your thoughts, you've mastered your emotions, you've mastered your libido, when you're an actual grown-up, a responsible adult human being, it's really obvious that 80% of people are children in adults' bodies because they live through coping mechanisms. Everything's a self-justification or a cope story to avoid their fear and their pain. Obviously, human beings live by the pleasure principle. We all know that. We're designed to move away from pain and towards pleasure. That's the body's survival mechanism. But our egos hijack the body's survival mechanism, and so our egos cause us to move away from psychological and emotional fear and pain and move towards psychological and emotional pleasure. And the difference between physical pain and psychological pain and emotional pain is that physical pain will hurt you. It will cause some damage. Even if it's the pain of lifting weights, it will actually tear your muscles. But you overcome that because you know it's good for you. With psychological pain and fear, it won't actually hurt you. It only hurts your false identity. It only hurts your ego. It only hurts your self-image. It doesn't actually hurt you because you are not your self-image. You can't be your self-image because your self-image is your imaginary self. Who is the one who is imagining your ego, your self-image? That is who you are, and that is not damaged by psychological and emotional pain. Psychological and emotional pain only damages your false self, your ego, your self-image. But 80% of people, their whole lives revolve around protecting their ego, their self-image, their false self, and thus avoiding psychological and emotional pain and getting addicted to psychological and emotional pleasure, whether that's eating, drugs, and scrolling on your phone, porn, sport, whatever it is you're addicted to. Everyone's addicted to something. And that is because I would say at least 80% of people are children in adults' bodies. They've never grown up. They've never learned to live without coping mechanisms. Again, we have to understand, when you're a child, you need coping mechanisms because you can't handle life. But to grow up literally means to stop living through coping mechanisms and instead engage directly with life in the present moment. That's what Zen means, by the way. If you want to know what Zen means and what true spirituality is being real, living in the present moment, which is the only thing that's real, and engaging with life directly, regardless of your fears and emotional trauma and memories and trying to avoid what happened before happening again. Just actually being a real person, living in the reality of the moment. That's what spirituality is. That's what Zen is. That's what self-mastery is. And anyone who does that is simply a responsible adult human being. That's a grown-up. That's what it means to be a grown-up, is to be quote-unquote spiritual or Zen. If you're not that, you are basically still a child in an adult's body because you're living through cope. You're avoiding anything that makes your ego feel bad. I know I sound harsh and you're probably hating me right now because the truth hurts. Look at the world. Does the world appear to be something that is run by responsible adults? Or does it appear to be run by a bunch of lunatics who've escaped from the asylum, or a bunch of children who have taken over the nursery? You tell me, what does the world look like? Does it really look like most people are responsible adults, or does it really look like most people are children in adults' bodies? Let me know in the comments.
2 months of talking, I told this guy yesterday I wasn't ready for a relationship, and he responded, "It's been great, hope you have a good one." And then he blocked me. No effort, no pressure applied. I'm devastated.
Good job, my brother. We rocking with you.
So some young lady said, some guys just don't have patience at all. I have been there. It's so annoying. Wow. Just wow.
Do most men that are 50 and 60 really want 30-year-olds? No, that's just a crock of shit, really, because a 30-year-old has like a 4-year-old child or wants children, right? So most men who are 50 or 60, they don't want to start over and have a second family and the responsibility of children. And how about the gap? Like a 30-year-old probably doesn't even know who the Rolling Stones are. Okay, so I think this is for sure a limiting belief you have that's just keeping you stuck. It's simply not true. Men want to date women, truth be told, in my research, that are literally within 5 years of their age, because it's compatibility at this stage of the game. We want to have like similar interests. We want to have similar stories. We want to be able to communicate about stuff from our childhood and our history. So I got to tell you, that's a limiting belief that you need to smash. I love you. Reach out to me. I'll help you get over it.
Another case in point. This woman is in her 40s or 50s, and she literally has the mind of a child. Now, the data, and every man who's ever lived, the most attractive age for a woman, doesn't matter what the age of the man is 23. And we know that men in their 30s like women in their early 20s, men in their 40s like women in their early 20s, men in their 50s, men in their 60s. It doesn't matter what age the man is. Women have their peak sexual market value at 23. That's because they're at peak fertility, youth, beauty. These are all things that, in terms of evolution, are attractive to men. The age gap doesn't matter to men. We are attracted to young women, period. But she doesn't live in reality. She lives in a fantasy world called reality is contingent upon what makes me feel good. In other words, if reality makes her feel bad, she just denies reality, which is what she's just doing in this. She has just made up a reality where men prefer, according to her research. Yeah, right, research. As if a woman's ever done research about anything. She researched her feelings. That's what she researched. According to her research, men prefer a woman 5 years younger than her. I mean, she literally just made that up. That is like a child making up a fairy story. She's literally, I mean it, that's the mind of a child. Look at her. She's a grown-ass woman on camera, recording for the internet, feeling good about it, feeling good that she can advise people and help them, making up a fairy story about what men are attracted to that has no bearing on reality, just like a 4-year-old girl that confidently tells her dad a story she made up because it makes her feel good, even though it bears no bearing on reality. I really mean this. Most people are mental and emotional infants.
He's out of line, but he's right.
Most people, almost all women, and an increasing number of men, thanks to the feminization of the culture, thanks to 2 generations of boys being raised by single mothers and feminist mothers. Boys have been feminized, and to be feminized means to be infantilized. It means to never grow up, to be treated like a baby. And we've got whole generations, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, and a lot of millennials, that have never grown up. They've been allowed to cope and make up cope stories, self-justifying cope stories, so that they don't have to face the realities of life. They don't have to face their psychological and emotional fears. They can just live in a world of make-believe and pretend so that they don't have to feel bad. Not feeling bad has been elevated to the highest value in Western society. Not facts, reality, data, evidence, competence, meritocracy. No. Making sure that people don't feel bad. In other words, babying people, infantilizing people, feminizing people. And that's why, in the 50s, I would say most men grew up, they were responsible adults, they didn't live through coping mechanisms, and a good proportion of women, maybe 30-40% of women grew up and were adults back in the 50s, prior to the 60s. But once cultural Marxism and identity politics subverted and corrupted Western civilization, the whole point of identity politics, which is to basically divide and conquer. It's a divide and conquer tool used by the ruling elites. But today, thanks to the feminization and infantilization of the Western mind, thanks to cultural Marxism and identity politics, mainly through feminism, but also through critical race theory and gender theory, all the trans nonsense, most people are children in adults' bodies. Most people, men and women. And I seem to be the only person that stands 10 toes down, bass in my voice, chest puffed out, and I will say this, unto death, because I absolutely know I'm right, and I don't care whose feelings it hurts. It's the truth, and if as a species we want to not go extinct or end up in a global prison planet of human slavery, totalitarian dystopian nightmare, if we don't want to end up extinct or in a high-tech 1984, we have to start telling the truth, recognizing the truth, admitting the truth, and acknowledging the truth. Because if we continue to live in fantasy worlds that don't hurt our feelings, we are fucked. Let me know if you agree in the comments. Comment your comment in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
Stop complaining about the results you didn't get from the work you didn't put in. The only way to become more successful than most people is to be willing to do something most people aren't willing to do.
God, we should walk away from this.
Hold on. If I were to do this, if I even could do it, I'd need a guarantee. How do I know you can deliver?
You don't. But I can. So, do you want to take a leap of faith? Or become an old man, filled with regret, waiting to die alone?